Alright guys, so let's get started. Sorry it's been a little while since our last Facebook Live. The last couple we've actually done on Lindy Cohen's Facebook, and then I did another video with Libby Babette. So it's been a while since we've done one on our Facebook. And today, leading up to our emotional eating program, which we would love you to join, it's got me thinking about, what I call more marvelous methods to manage your moods. So basically, emotional eating is a really big problem. It's no good for your mindset. Most of us, when we do it, we don't end up feeling better. Or if we do, we only feel a little bit better for that time when we're eating the food. And then we end up feeling exactly the same as we did before. But I think about it like you've had your original feelings with a side order of guilt. So now not only have the old feelings come back, as soon as you stop eating, you feel a little bit annoyed with yourself or guilty or frustrated. And I think of emotional eating like double dipping on a bad mood. So in psychologist terms, it's not a very effective kind of coping strategy. But of course, it's also not very good for your weight management. There's a lot of debate as to what the way to go about weight management is. But what we do know is whether you're following a non-dieting approach, which we really like, or whether you're doing bariatric surgery, which we think is quite good for the appropriate person with good support, or whether you are following a sort of like a more diet and exercise weight loss plan, which we don't do as much. Doesn't matter which of those you're doing, we know that emotional eating puts a pretty big spanner in the works of that. Hello, Jennifer. Hello, Sarah. I'm going to ask you guys to actually contribute a lot today. And sometimes with a lot of people talking, we want to keep things nice and short. But today I want to give you the opportunity to speak in a little bit of detail. And I'll tell you why. Basically, when you're feeling in a kind of a good frame of mind, you're on a bit of a health kick, your emotional eating might feel like it's gone away, but you haven't really transcended emotional eating until you've developed new coping strategies that are your habits even when things get tough. So that's the real cure for emotional eating. And we're going to talk today, there's kind of a few different parts to emotional eating transformation. The first part is looking at things that are going on in your life, problems that you need to solve, things that are giving you persistent, unpleasant feelings, those things that you really need to change, unmet wants and needs, really looking at your life and changing it so you're getting less of those unpleasant feelings. So we're not going to cover that today because that's too big a topic. The second thing is learning to deal with your feelings, learning to accept the whole variety of feelings that we get. We do get a lot of feelings that are not necessarily pleasant, and that is normal. So we do need to learn to accept them and make room for them as they come and go without eating. But the third part is actually learning new ways for when those feelings come up, how do we deal with them? And I call them more marvelous methods to manage your moods. So we've actually got a link in the video to a list of where you can create a list of more marvelous methods to manage your mood. So I'd suggest after we talk today, if you like any of these ideas or it gets you thinking about ones of your own, I want you to write them down on that more marvelous methods to manage your mood list and put it on the fridge, put it on the pantry. The idea is you'll kind of go there in zombie mode, ready to do your emotional eating, and it will help open your mind to all of these other possibilities. Now, the reason that I want to talk to you guys and I want you guys to talk to me in detail is, the idea of replacing eating with some other behavior. It's not new. it's a really great idea, and I think in essence it's kind of what needs to happen for you to fully transcend emotional eating. But I think a lot of people struggle with that because they don't necessarily take the time and the energy and go through the reflection process to figure out things that are really going to work for them, given their particular mix of feelings, given the situation that they're in, given their own personal preferences. So that's what I want to do today. I actually want us to kind of open our minds to hear a few different, more marvelous methods that other people find really useful. I'll give you a few interesting ones from my clients over the years, and then it can sort of get the creative juices flowing, get you thinking a bit outside of the box, and then you can have a play around and experiment with those ideas and see if you can start to shake up those old eating routines and develop some more marvelous methods. Okay, I might start by giving you a few just interesting ones from people that I've seen. I wrote down a few before. Okay, so I had a guy that I was working with, and he said, look, Glenn, my emotional eating happens like pretty much as soon as I get home, and I'm kind of cranky. He's had a big day at work, he's married, had a couple of children. He says, I get home, start eating, maybe have a beer or a glass of wine, and I'm just kind of in, like, he kind of called it like grumpy mode for the whole evening. And we talked about, maybe going for a walk, and I think a walk is movement is a great mood manager, but he decided for him that wasn't quite right. And I think that's the real key, is finding those things and experimenting and playing with those things until you find something that's right for you. Going for a walk or having a glass of water might be great alternatives, but you really need to go through that process of reflecting on yourself to come to something that even though it might end up being quite simple, really will work for you. So this guy, he decided that he was going to go home, have a shower, and he could sometimes stay in the shower for half an hour. That was probably the longest, but he said, I just go and I just let the water wash over me. It's literally like I'm washing away all the stress of the day, and I don't leave until I'm ready. I'm kind of cleansed physically and emotionally, and I think that's a really cool strategy for him. His wife and kids didn't mind that time without dad, because when they got the time with dad, he was a different dad, so everyone kind of won as well. So I think that was a nice little interesting technique. Simone said, ooh, I kind of like the shower. Totally get that. Okay, let me tell you one other one. This is one of my favorite ones because I think that sometimes we suppress our normal human feelings and we don't allow ourselves to feel them. And I think this is a beautiful example of a lady really owning how she felt and dealing with it in the most appropriate kind of way, although it was a bit different. I'm giving you different things so you can start to shake your mind up. This is what we do in our workshops. We get everybody to talk about their different ways, and it just gets the creative juices flowing. And then in our online program, we just go through all of these, dozens and dozens of ways to help you in that process to find ones that work for you. Okay, this lady, she had a challenging relationship with her mum. And so one of the things she actually worked on with a previous psychologist was to keep a bit of distance, a bit of boundaries. And what she found was that actually worked quite well. And so she actually called her mum just once in the week. But she said, Glenn, every time I finish, talking to mum, I feel like I'm so frustrated. I just want to just scream. And we were sort of talking about it and thinking about it, and we sort of came to the thought, well, why don't you just do that? She was a lady who lived on acreage. She was married as well. Her husband was often out on the farm working. So she said, no one could really hear me. So what she did was she just stepped outside of the house and then just kind of went, and just let it all out, because that was the feeling she was feeling: frustration, anger, resentment. What a beautiful way to express that, to just kind of yell it out. And she was a bit similar to the guy in the shower, and she didn't stop yelling until she felt like she needed to. She said, I just have let off and it's just one big yell, but then if I feel like it's not quite out, I just yell a little bit more. So hopefully this can kind of get you thinking about some things that you could do. Okay, Simone has said, occasionally I write in a diary to get my cranky out. I think that's a really cool idea. Janelle likes the idea of having a shower too. Kate says screaming into a pillow is always good, or in the car, because that's obviously, and that's what it's all about. It's about finding ways that these ideas, or some ideas, can work for you. Not everything is going to work for every person at every time. But, for example, I love that, Kate, because you haven't said, well, that wouldn't work for me because that's not my situation. I don't live on acreage. You said, look, I can just yell into a pillow, or, turn the music up in the car and just yell. And that's a really cool thing. Yep. Sarah said, there's a couple of people here actually who are saying that writing and diarising is a really good idea for them. So that's a really cool idea, because what we know is that you actually have to organise. Sometimes your thoughts just keep swimming around in your mind and they just keep on going around and around and around. If you have to talk to someone or to write them down, you actually have to organize your thoughts to a higher level. So you're actually doing some processing of your thoughts, and maybe also some expression of your thoughts. Sometimes you might feel like you need to talk to someone, but sometimes it's not as much about being heard as it is about letting it out. So diarising can be really, really good for a lot of reasons. And that is one thing that can be good if you don't feel like you have other options. Most of us can have something that we can write on or type into to sort of sort things out in our minds. Let me tell you another little one that I actually heard of enough, and I've been doing weight management for quite a while now, and it's not that often that I hear many new strategies, but I really like this one. I thought, that's so simple, because a really good one that I like for a lot of people is doing something self-caring, like a massage, or going to have a facial, or a manicure, a pedicure, something like that. But a lot of people then, and I think that's great to do, especially regularly, it kind of helps take the stress levels down so they don't get so high. But it's probably not the type of thing that you're going to do when you are feeling those feelings at the time. Okay, now it's Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. I've just got home. I'm going to go and book myself a massage. It's probably, not the thing that you would do every day. And I had a lady who felt like she was rewarding herself with food, but she really wanted to reward herself with a massage or something self-caring. So what she did was, almost like you would do for a little kid, she got a star chart, and she decided that, 5 or 6 or 7 days worth of food rewards. If she wasn't to reward herself with food, she would give herself a star, and that meant she was on the way to some type of self-caring. And of course, the more stars she got herself in that week, the better the self-caring thing that she could do. So that could be something interesting to kind of play around with, as a bit of a star chart. Oh, this is interesting. There's a couple of people here who are talking about making a diary, like a positive diary. So actually, logging, sometimes it is good to express yourself, but actually logging some positive things, so to start to change those thoughts around. We do know, of course, your emotions are a real product of your thoughts. So that might be cool to do some self-expression with the diary, but also do a bit of positive thinking with the diary. That's really cool too. This is interesting. Some people here are talking about creative things, painting, music, and I really love that as a I'm just trying to see if I can get some more words. Yeah, here we go. I really love that idea of using those creative elements, that creative part to us. I think sometimes I would actually love to study music therapy at some stage, because I think sometimes the right song can do for you what a psychology session can do for you. And I love the idea of painting. And Simone said if you're in a bad mood, you can use dark, cranky colours, so it's a real self-expression. And you can do the same with your music, of course, as well. If you're feeling really dark and moody, rather than sort of, give yourself a little punishment with some emotional eating, you can just allow yourself to express and feel those feelings with some sad or some, angry or some dark kind of music. Or you might decide for you that you want to lift your mood, and there's the right type of music that can do that for you. Interesting. Lauren has said that, she uses adult colouring books. Very easy to pick up and just clean up and just focus on just being in the present moment. And I think that's very, very cool. We do find as psychologists that a lot of our stress, a lot of our worry, a lot of our anxiety comes from, worrying about what might or might not happen in the future, ruminating on what has happened in the past. But often, mindfulness teachers talk about it as, your calming moment or the perfect moment. Just being in the present helps you just connect with what's going on now. And that's not always, but very typically less stressful than worrying about what might or might not happen or what has happened, because of course with both of those things you don't have the control. Jen said with her music, she says she has a playlist of certain songs for different moods, and I was just about to say that's I actually do that, and I've had several clients that do that as well. They have a playlist for different moods, and even I've had one client who's gone to the level of a playlist for different moods that helps them to get out of that mood. So they kind of start with a bit of it. It was just for them, the one that they were discussing with me was like a sad, kind of lonely feeling. So they start with those songs, and they don't go to some happy songs. They went to some sort of mid-range, like indie kind of songs, and then ended up with some more upbeat stuff. So it sort of took them through a progression. Yeah, people here are talking about keeping their hands busy. Crocheting for charity, sewing, craft for a couple of hours. Joe said, I was in a weird mood yesterday, picked up my craft, and a couple of hours later I actually stopped and realised I felt lighter in myself. So that's a really cool thing. And I think very practically, Sarah's added she does some crocheting and some beading. I think very practically that's a really, really cool thing, because you can't often, there's a lot of those things, if it takes two hands or a lot of attention, it becomes incompatible with eating. So for that period, especially if you're having like an eating impulses tend to be really powerful, but they actually, if you let them, they tend to go away fairly quickly. So if you can keep yourself occupied for a period of time, they might often just go away. So guys, I think that is tons and tons. We will keep talking about these things, but I think there's some really great ideas, some wonderful, more marvellous methods to manage your mood. And I think that it does take a bit of time for you to develop these as habits. So I'd really love you to give them a go and experiment with them and see what works, what doesn't, how you can make things work. Don't expect anything to be perfect. Of course, none of these strategies are perfect. The aim of them is not for you to necessarily feel $1 million, but the aim is for you to help to sort of calm down those unpleasant feelings, no matter what they are. And then you will typically, because you will, if you're overeating on foods that are not nutritious, you will typically feel a little bit guilty or annoyed with yourself or frustrated about taking care of your health. So if you can spend this time and develop some new ways to feel better ways to feel better, then you'll end up feeling a bit better, even if you don't feel perfect afterwards. and you'll also underneath that have that self-satisfaction of being in line with your values of healthy eating and moving. So guys, remember, you've got the more marvelous methods to manage your mood list. If you've thought of a few ideas, we've got a link here in the video that you can just go to print that out. And also, you've got the details of our Freedom from Emotional Eating program. We do that regularly, but the next one starts July 31st, so just in a couple of weeks. And we actually go through these more marvelous methods to manage your mood in a lot of detail. Then we go through the emotional acceptance, how you actually make room for feelings and make peace with feelings that you can't change for that period. And then we also go a step further back into looking at changing your thinking style and problem-solving things in your life that are giving you consistent and repetitive unpleasant emotions. And then we go a step further behind that, and I give you the research and the theory behind emotional eating. So for people who do kind of feel like you're emotionally eating, or like your emotions suck your willpower for good eating, then that can be a really cool program to do, and we're really, really looking forward to it. So guys, thank you for being with me for another Facebook Live, and thank you so much for your participation. This would not have worked very well without it, and I feel like we've actually come up with some wonderful ideas. This is very similar to what we do in our workshops. Actually, it's been really, really cool where we've had a variety of people coming from different backgrounds, and hopefully, even if you've been able to sort of open your mind and think out the box enough to sort of grab onto one type of non-food mood manager, then that's a massive, massive win. Because I think it's, like I said, the idea of replacing one habit with a new habit is not new, but we need to sort of open our minds, have a play, and find something that's right for you. All right, guys, take great care, and good luck with your more marvelous methods to manage your moods.